It's a pleasure to be able to talk to you here today about starting something good. Our little venture that began in a beach in West Auckland that hopefully we hope will have an influence over the way people do business in the coming years. Please throw any questions to me as we go along, and hopefully there'll be a chance at the end for you to challenge me or ask me questions about anything related to the presentation. John, it was very interesting to hear about International Rotary in your 5 minutes before. We actually began in Samoa as well, along with the Tyndall Foundation, and I hadn't been aware of the Tyndall Foundation's involvement there, but it's extraordinary how often they crop up when people are talking to us about things that they are doing around New Zealand and overseas. So All Good was born out of a conversation at Piha Beach in the summer of 2008 when three of us, my brother Chris, who just left a venture, a friend Simon, who had recently finished with 42 Below, a vodka company, and myself were twiddling our thumbs and wondering what we were going to do. And we felt that that a business that did good for the people that provided the supply chain would be a way that we could get a groundswell of consumers behind us. So this is really a story of why we tried to do business in a different way and whether that way can work for other New Zealand businesses. We pondered a whole lot of different ideas, and many of these failed. But eventually we struck on two ideas. One was selling the same banana, but making sure that the growers benefited from that. And the other was taking on the biggest consumer brand in the world. So in 2010, we started importing New Zealand's first fair trade bananas. And in 2012, we launched the world's first fair trade organic cola company that's made with real cola nut. We work directly with growers in West Africa and in South America who do all the hard work, whereas we get the pleasure here of just talking about what they've done and to promote our drinks and our bananas. In that time, we've grown from the three of us to now 30 globally in the last 3 years, and our bananas are available throughout supermarkets in New Zealand, and if you shop at Morrison's or Common Sense Organics, you're certainly buying our bananas because they don't stock anything else, and New Worlds and Pack and Saves right through the country stock All Good fair trade bananas. You may not be aware of it, but the supermarkets have been particularly helpful in getting giving consumers the choice. That's our product range, very simple. We founded All Good on the following principles: that the food we eat should be good for the growers, good for the land, and good for you. We also had principles about the business side of the equation. We did realise that actually undertaking a business out of New Zealand in a niche space meant that we had to focus on products that were mainstream, that we didn't want to be seen just to be in the green ghettos, and that we had seen other New Zealand brands and also in the Wellington independent coffee industry, the wine industry, tell a good story about the provenance of their natural products, and we felt that this could be done in other areas of the consumer space. But one thing we also understood and held to strongly was that if we did the right thing by the growers and we were able to substantiate that, then we wouldn't be the only ones telling people to buy them. To choose All Good, we had a whole group of people behind us. And that is one thing that we've learned along the way, is by doing the right thing by business, you can get, other people will tell your story for you. And we have had huge support from World Vision, from Oxfam, from Fair Trade, from the organics movement, but also from media throughout the world. So we understood that being a small business from Wellington, we didn't have the funds to be able to create great big marketing campaigns, to go to the media and ask for advertising time. We couldn't do that, but other people would tell the story for us. Kiwis chomp through 450 million bananas each year. So we eat more bananas, a tropical fruit grown on the other side of the world, than we do oranges and apples from New Zealand. Often the bananas, which have travelled all the way from South America, are cheaper than our local fruit. And we picked on bananas because they are one of the most consumed supermarket commodities, but arguably one of the least ethical. And until 5 years ago, no one had a choice. So where do New Zealand's bananas come from? Well, most of the bananas come from the Philippines and Ecuador. The plantations commonly are huge. This one here is 14 kilometres long, and every 10 days they get sprayed like this by some fairly demanding chemicals. Up to 200 different chemicals are sprayed onto monoculture banana plantations. And the problem with monocultures and bananas is that they're a single species. So as soon as they catch the flu or some disease, you're going to lose your whole plantation. So as a result, the big corporations have fought that risk by spraying chemicals in huge numbers. And up until the early 1990s, 40% of male banana workers in Central and South America were sterile by the time they were 40 because of the use of chemicals in that industry. So the banana is very vulnerable to pests and disease. We felt that this was not the way to treat the growers and to treat the land. But we also knew that to sell the bananas the way that our growers were producing them meant that they were going to be $1 more for essentially the same banana. And many people in the industry said this is an industry where discounting is rife, and you can move 10 cents and lose half your sales. So by trying to put $1 premium on your bananas, you're asking for trouble. But we were pretty convinced that wasn't true. In the UK, about 35% of bananas are fair trade, and in parts of Europe it's as many as 50%. But we were also pretty convinced that if we showed Kiwis that the growers were being looked after, that they would get behind us. So the fair trade minimum price is $14 a box, whereas Oxfam found that most of the bananas in New Zealand were sourced from the Philippines, where growers were paid about $4.50 a box, and really below the cost of their production. We felt that that wasn't fair, and we didn't think that Kiwis would find it fair as well. So we now work with a cooperative of 130 families in southwest Ecuador. This is our supply chain. There are no middlemen or brokers, and we work directly with the farmers. In fact, the farmers are actually looking at investing in our business. One thing that amazed us is that when we went to visit our farmers in Ecuador in the first year, they became our source of business smarts. They were the ones that were helping us. It was completely not us helping them. They were very savvy because they own their own farms, they're business people themselves, and they were talking about the ways that we could tell the story well so that Kiwis would have a better chance of sourcing our bananas. So here's Pedro and Graciela, who have been with us since about 2012. Before they moved to fair trade, without regular payment for their crops, it was difficult for them to live from week to week. So they existed on as little as $8 a day, and that's a pretty tough amount when you need to pay for your food, also pay for some of their staff and support their children's studies. This fine chap is Wilson. Wilson came to Wellington last year and spent some time with us so he could see his bananas on the shelves in New Worlds, Common Sense and in more Wilsons, which was a fantastic visit for him. He had never left Peru, Ecuador before, and he'd never seen his hard work on the shelves of supermarkets. So typically small family farms are a lot more sustainably managed than large monocultures. There's much less chemical input. This is Wilson's farm behind him. So it's not a monoculture, it is essentially a rainforest with, he's growing cacao, he's growing pawpaw, and he's growing the guavo tree as well as bananas. So there's the bananas and each of the different varieties on his farm kind of protect themselves from disease because they are planted as they were first found in the wild. And fair trade bans the use of over 120 toxic chemicals that are commonly used in the tropical fruit industry. So healthier fruit and people, and healthier people working on the farms, and it leads to better bananas. So after 5 years, Kiwis are now supporting us by buying about 60,000 bunches of all good bananas each week. And we've carved a little bit of a market share away from the big players in the industry. And perhaps a testament to the success of fair trade has been that now it's fairly mainstream and that people are bringing in fair trade bananas. Our competitors are now bringing in fair trade bananas and taking us on head on. And we feel that's a great outcome, that they feel that they need to show that their growers are being looked after. But it also meant that we no longer felt quite as sure in our business, that our business felt a bit shaky now, because being a small player in a market with 4 or 5 competitors that all had market capitalizations that they counted in the billions, meant that we felt very, very shaky. So we looked around for something else that we could get our hands on, that we could get stuck into. And again, we looked into the consumer space, and there was one brand out there that was selling 1.9 billion products each day. And we felt that maybe that would be something we could look into doing ourselves. Coca-Cola sells 1.9 billion products each day. It's an $80 billion brand. Yes, that is 1.9 billion. It's not 1.9 million, it's 1.9 billion. And it's an $80 billion brand. But the naming ingredient from their main drink hasn't been for the last 100 years part of their product. And it comes from West Africa, where it was most recently grown naturally in Sierra Leone, which is at the moment the bottom of the UN's development index, with a GDP of 2.5 billion. So the people of Sierra Leone have never benefited at all from the fact that the cola nut is something that grows natively to their country. And we felt that paradox might have something worth looking into. So we felt maybe there's a business there, maybe there's a story we could tell from Graylin and from Wellington. So 3 years ago, we started putting together the world's first fair trade organic cola made with real ingredients. So the first cola started in the late 1880s, and it was by really a medicine pharmacist in the US who had come across cola nut and put it with a number of other ingredients and put it into little fountains and spread it around as medicinal cure for everything he could think up on the day that he was trying to sell it. His business didn't go well, and soon after it was brought by a couple of executives who turned it into Coca-Cola. Soon after, they were able to synthesize those real ingredients into what you would now experience as the Coca-Cola of today. So we went back to the 1880s and tried to take those real ingredients and turn them into a cola that resembles something that you would have in your fridges today. So yes.
Except for cocaine, of course.
That's right. We didn't manage to pull that one off yet. I don't think MPI would be too interested in us taking it on. We're not sure whether Coca-Cola did have cocaine in at the start. It seems that it did, and it did have genuine cola nut as well. So we took lemon juice and real vanilla from growers in Sri Lanka. We took coriander and nutmeg, and we took a range of citrus oils, so grapefruit oil, lemon oil and lime oil, and put them all together with fair trade organic sugar from India, and experimented for 9 months. The first batches were ordinary, to say the least, but after about 9 months we came across something that we felt we were ready to take to Kiwis and to cafes around New Zealand. The most important thing, though, was that we did have a story to tell. So since we bottled our first batch, we've returned $100,000 to the people of Boma and Tiwai on the border of Sierra Leone and Liberia. And that's the group of villages that bring back, send us our cola nut each year. And because New Zealanders, Australians, people right through Asia, and now we're throughout the UK, in just 3 years we have over 2,000 cafes globally serving Kamakola, Gingerella and Lemmy. We've been able to send money back to make sure that the growers have a sustainable livelihood and that they can invest in their futures. So in Ecuador, we're able to support teachers in 17 schools and 2 medical clinics. And we've returned $7 million to our banana growing community there. In Sierra Leone, we've been operating for a lot less time. We've built a bridge so that they don't get flooded each year. At the moment, we're putting 50 girls through school. We've got a rice processing centre and a seed bank, and we're restoring plantations. Now, when I say we, none of this is really by us. We consumers are contributing to this, and the growers on the ground choose what projects they put their money into. So we're not development specialists, and we don't pretend to know what would be the right thing for someone in southern Sierra Leone to do with their money. So that is all managed on the ground by a group of elders in the villages who decide how that these are put into reality. And we've been thrilled at the progress that has been made in just a couple of years. So thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you about All Good, and we hope you'll see more of us over the coming years, and when you're in your local cafe or in your supermarkets, you'll recognise the little logo and understand a little bit of what goes on to those products. Thanks very much.